Can you comment on the automation, and this may not be your part of this, but the automation installed in the lighting units and the PA system, you know, because some of the banks of lights are supposed to be on when varsity games are playing,
Yeah.
some of the banks are on when outside user groups. Who's monitoring that, and does that, I mean, just comment on that automation and how it works and who turns it on and who turns it off, or is it timed, or?
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that either Tim or Mitchell could probably describe it best in terms of who the people are or what the title of the individual is at the high school who mines that stuff. From our perspective, the more programmable those, and they're essentially computer programs as I understand it, the more programmable and unchangeable they are, the better they are. And I think the point we made in one response to comment was that someone who's a gardener or someone who's a worker at the facility can't just come in there at the behest of a student who says, I can't hear what's being broadcast out there, please crank it up louder. Because you need to actually have codes and you have some sort of a password or a key to make those kind of changes. Would that be, oops, sorry, Tim, would that be correct?
That's essentially correct. And with the new lighting systems, they used to be controlled out of Iowa where we could program in the lighting and they can shut them off at a certain time. They can tell you if the lights, one of the lights are burnt out or not operating 100%. So the technology is there to do that. One of the downfalls and the pitfalls to that type of automation is if we have a local disturbance on the electrical, that can impact that programming, and you may have a significant amount of time where you may be in the middle of a football game, you have an impact on the field, and that programming goes away. So then you could throw off the whole programming. On the PA systems, it's essentially the same, but usually that's a site-based administration of that PA system. One of the downfalls we also see is that even with our PA system locked out, a number of groups have portable PA systems. So even if we don't have access to the PA system on the site, we will see user groups bring in their own PA systems. We've had user groups also bring in their own lights. Granted, they're not 70 foot, but they do bring in their own lights.
But I guess my concern with this is for the neighborhood, I mean, and the neighbors, so everybody goes away and the lights don't go off. There's something that happened. Who's going to monitor, especially for the outside user groups when nobody from the site oftentimes is there? Who's going to monitor that to make sure that the neighbors are not being subjected to lights being on at 3 a.m. in the morning because something went wrong?
Those specific controls could be monitored by M&O personnel as part of the use permit, that an M&O personnel would be available to verify the lights are off, or normally we would have custodial services that are available during that same time. If the lights didn't go off, they would have access to electricians that could come out and manually shut those lights off. They will have off switches on site. That's part of the lighting control panel that I would anticipate being installed at this site.
Is that going to be part of when an outside user group comes and they want to use the field? Are you going to put something in there specifically that all equipment is functioning and it's on and it's off when it's supposed to be? I just, having been there and knowing that there's nobody from the site there, and sometimes those groups come on and things get left on and somebody has to be called. My concern is that the proper functioning of that equipment, and I know it's going to work when it's new, but then a few months down the line, a year or two down the line, then what happens?
I would highly recommend it. I would highly recommend that the site take that proactive approach. It's not something that we would personally do, especially as Measure C, that we wouldn't have overall control over that. And necessarily M&O doesn't normally have overall control on how the site manages it. M&O can assist in ensuring some of those things, and as a user permit, that would definitely be something that could be implemented into the user permit system to have an electrician available to shut that off. Like I said, I know we normally have a custodial available. Now, if we're talking about somebody going out there on a non-use permit and finding a way to override the various lots and things that are on the site, activating the lights. That would take a little bit of time to mobilize somebody. We would need a call from the neighborhood or a call from the police saying we need somebody to go out there and shut these lights down. But if it's on a user permit, that would be usually something that the site could control.
Have we seen those types of issues at Northgate or at other schools, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Think back to the Super Bowl where the lights went off for 40 minutes.
And those were probably much higher state of the art than
I would think so.
Isabel was.
I think they spent a bit more.
The other question the other question I had is around, just because you get lights and a sound system, it doesn't automatically mean that all events need to move to nighttime. So because you have it doesn't mean because they talked about 170 days of use. So what process, and you may or may not know this, but the process in place, take the school site, for example, we can't really determine sometimes with off-campus people coming on or outside agencies who might want to use it. They're probably looking to use it at night because school's going on during the day. But the athletic events and the school's events, who might be monitoring that to see is that necessary that everything suddenly move to nighttime as one way to mitigate would this occur, one way to mitigate the night usage, the lights and the sound system. It doesn't mean it's going to be used for every single solitary game and event.
I don't believe that even on a lot of the sites that's the instance where they use it all the time. I don't have that type of data available, but the bottom line is that the number that the board chooses to move forward with is the absolute maximum that these lights would be on. Obviously, these lighting situations may be in those times of the year where it's not completely dark, so the lights may be on for a safety reason, where it's not as dark as it would be in the middle of December. So these lighted situations also include those spring and fall times where it's dark.